Good morning, children. In our previous class, we discussed about chemiosmotic hypothesis. As you know, chemiosmotic hypothesis explains the synthesis of ATP. And for the ATP molecule to get synthesized, there should be a proton gradient established, or a proton gradient should be established so as to produce ATP molecules. Or else you can say ATP synthesis is associated with the establishment of a proton gradient, and we listed out different ways in which there arises a difference in the concentration of protons, which will contribute to proton gradient. And 3-4 reasons we discussed, and as a result the concentration of protons in the stroma reduces, and that inside the thylakoid membrane will increase. And we were about to discuss about the breaking down of this proton gradient, and we couldn't because time was over, or by the time we reached the end of the period, so I could not explain it. So today I'll be explaining it in detail, but before that I should know whether you have understood how a proton gradient is getting established. So one by one you see how the protons, or how the difference in concentration of protons is formed across the thylakoid membrane. Gayatri can tell me one point.
When water is split into proton, electron, and oxygen, and the protons remain inside the membrane, so the concentration of protons inside the membrane increases.
So you're saying about when splitting of water takes place to the protons in the thylakoid, inside the thylakoid membrane, or not inside the thylakoid membrane, in the lumen of the thylakoid. Okay, what is the next method, Malavika?
The primary electron acceptor is located outside the membrane, and the molecule of the electron transporter removes one proton molecule. And
now this primary electron acceptor will transfer the electron to where?
Outside the membrane.
Now we learned about another carrier, no? Excited electrons will be taken up by primary electron acceptor. From primary electron acceptor, it will be transferred to a proton carrier. Didn't I discuss about that? Yes, no? To a proton carrier. And this proton carrier, along with removing, or along with the transfer of electron, they will remove one proton from the stroma, and it will be transferred to an electron carrier present inside, towards the inner side of the thylakoid membrane, and as a result the protons will get transferred to the lumen of thylakoid. So that is the second way by means of which concentration of protons in the stroma reduces, and that inside the lumen increases. Then which is the next way? Nandana?
The NADP reductase, it needs protons and electrons for reduction to NADPH2. So for protons, it is on the stroma side.
Enzyme present?
I'm sorry, ma'am, I didn't hear you.
Is NADP reductase enzyme present?
Stroma side.
Stroma side.
So when the electrons are transferred, protons from the photosystem is also transferred, thus protons.
NADP reductase enzyme will catalyze the conversion of NADP to NADPH2. It's not transferring, instead along with electrons. You know that electrons will be accepted by NADP and it will get reduced to NADPH2. But along with electrons, protons are also needed to reduce NADP to NADPH2. And NADP reductase enzyme is present in the stroma. So the protons necessary for reducing NADP are taken from the stroma. Have you understood, Nandaram? Have you understood?
Yes, ma'am.
NADP reductase enzyme present in the stroma. And for reducing NADP to NADPH2, NADP is getting changed to H2. There itself you can understand that two protons are needed. So not only electrons, along with the electrons, protons are also needed to reduce NADP to NADPH2 that is taken from the stroma. That also will result in increasing the concentration of protons inside the lumen of thylakoid and reducing the concentration of protons outside or in the stroma, outside the thylakoid or in the stroma. And as a result, because of the concentration of protons inside the lumen, the pH gets reduced, it becomes acidic. Okay, till here we learn. And when this gradient, proton gradient means difference in the concentration of protons across the membrane. And now you know more amount or the concentration of protons is more inside than outside. When you compare stroma and the lumen of thylakoid is having more concentration of protons. So a proton gradient is established. But whenever this proton gradient is broken, it will lead to the release of energy. Utilizing this energy, ATP molecule will be synthesized. So when we learned about the Z scheme, we learned that as the electrons are transferred from photosystem 2 to electron acceptor, from electron acceptor through the electron transport chain, it will reach PS1 or photosystem 1, and utilizing the energy released by electrons, one molecule of ATP will be synthesized. So that was the factor that we learned about ATP synthesis under Z scheme. So that line, so how that ATP synthesis is happening. So there when we discussed about Z scheme, we didn't go in detail. So that ATP synthesis, how it is taking place, that is explained in chemiosmotic hypothesis. Now, from last day's class, you have understood how a proton gradient is established. Now, let us see how this proton gradient is broken and energy is released and how the ATP molecules are getting synthesized. Hence, protons in the stroma decrease in number, while in the lumen, there is accumulation of protons. This creates a proton gradient across the thylakoid membrane and decreases the pH in the lumen that we already discussed. Breakdown of proton gradient. Whenever this proton gradient is broken, it will release energy. How the proton gradient can break? By the movement of protons. When from the thylakoid, the proton starts moving out, then the gradient, the concentration difference will get upset and that will result in the release of energy. The gradient is broken down by the movement of protons. So gradient is established as a result of the proton gradient, more amount of protons in the lumen and less outside. So because of the difference in the concentration of protons inside and outside, you say that there is a proton gradient. But this can get disturbed, or this proton gradient will break down when proton starts moving from the lumen to the stroma. So they start moving across the membrane to the stroma. But how do they move? They cannot move through any part of the thylakoid membrane. The pink double-layered membrane, what you see is a thylakoid membrane. But from any region or through any part of the thylakoid, they cannot diffuse out. They cannot move out. And there are certain definite channels. Some fixed places are there through where they can move. And they will be moving through the transmembrane channel, means a channel which is present on the membrane. So present on the membrane, you can find a channel for the transport of these protons. You call it as transmembrane channel of the F0. F0, and in your textbook, in old textbooks, it was mentioned simply F0, but now they have added CF0. So here also CF1, CF1 and CF0. Okay, so when through this transmembrane channel of F0, so here you can see this part, ATP synthase is an enzyme. And this ATPase or ATP synthase enzyme has got two parts. First part you call it the CF0. The other part is protruding out. One part is embedded in the membrane. The other part is protruding out. The protruding part you call it as CF1. The part which is embedded you call it as CF0. And it is CF0 which acts as a transmembrane channel. You can see the arrow pointed towards the stroma, towards outside. So through this channel, protons start moving outwards. The ATP synthase enzyme or ATPase consists of two parts. CF0, as I told you, it's embedded in the membrane. It's fixed, it is embedded in the membrane. You can see here, this part is embedded. This part is, just a minute children, I couldn't take the pen. This part is embedded in the membrane and it forms a transmembrane channel and which will help in the transport of protons. You can see protons moving outwards through that channel. And this movement of protons is brought about by facilitated diffusion. Facilitated diffusion is a method of transport where energy is not utilized, and many times facilitated diffusion takes place with the help of a carrier molecule. So facilitated by means of facilitated diffusion through this transmembrane channel of F0, proton starts moving outwards. Protons, they start moving outwards, that is from the lumen into the stroma, breaking down the proton gradient. And CF1, that is the next part of ATPase enzyme. As you can see, from the thylakoid membrane, it is protruding out. It's protruding out from the thylakoid membrane. And this part is stroma. Okay. This one is the lumen. This part is the lumen and this is the membrane. What you see here is the thylakoid membrane. So embedded in the membrane, forming a transmembrane channel, you can see the F0 part, CF0, and with the help of facilitated diffusion, they will transport the protons from the lumen into the stroma, breaking down the proton gradient. Whereas CF1, it protrudes from the outer surface of the thylakoid membrane, and the energy released, I told you earlier also, when this proton gradient is broken down, energy will be released. And utilizing this energy or the energy which is released at that time brings about a conformational change, means a change in the shape and structure of CF1 takes place, and this makes the enzyme synthesize ATP molecule. So when the proton gradient is broken by the movement of protons from the lumen of thylakoid into the stroma, as I told, that energy is released. Using that energy or because of this energy release, some conformational change, some change in the structure and shape of CF1 takes place, which makes the enzyme synthesize ATP molecules. That is how the synthesis of ATP molecules are taking place, or the synthesis of ATP molecule is taking place. Okay, this is known as chemiosmotic hypothesis. So this chemiosmotic hypothesis explains how ATP is getting synthesized in the chloroplast. So we have completed chemiosmotic hypothesis. It requires a membrane for a chemiosmosis, or the movement of these protons across the membrane. If it has to happen, there should be a membrane. Only then it can move across the membrane. A proton pump method by means of which the protons can be pumped out. Then a proton gradient, an ATPase enzyme. So these are the requirements for chemiosmosis to take place. So quickly we will summarize chemiosmotic hypothesis. It's a very important topic, and many topics are there in this particular chapter, and you can expect lengthy questions or 5-mark, 3-mark questions, etc. from this chapter. Not only this chapter, the next chapter, that is respiration, is also equally important. There are many flow charts, cycles, all that you need to learn. So quickly I'm going to see, we'll summarize these points. Chemiosmotic hypothesis, it will explain the mechanism of ATP synthesis. And if ATP synthesis should take place, a proton gradient should be established along the or across the membrane. And these are, now we are going to discuss about the different ways in which a proton gradient is established. First of all, when water splitting takes place on the inner side, as you know, protons, electrons, and oxygen, these will be released. Oxygen diffuses out, electrons will compensate for the loss of electrons from photosystem 2, but the protons will remain inside. And this water splitting complex, the water splitting of water is taking place inside the membrane. So it is taking place inside the membrane. So what happens is, the protons which are formed will remain within the lumen, causing an increase in the concentration of protons in the lumen. Now the next method, as electrons move through the photosystem, you know that in Z scheme or non-cyclic photophosphorylation, what is happening is the electrons are getting circulated within the photosystem, and from photosystem 2 to electron acceptor, then electron transport chain, then goes to photosystem 1, from there again to another electron acceptor, from there to NADP, making it reduced. So that is the Z scheme. So in that you have learned that electrons are moving through the photosystems, protons. So when electrons are being transported, or when they are we cannot say circulated, when they are moving through, hope you understood why we cannot call it as circulation of electrons. The circulation or a cyclic flow of electrons will take place only in which photophosphorylation? Cyclic photophosphorylation. Non-cyclic, once it is lost to NADP, we will not get it back. So as these electrons are moving through the photosystems, protons are also transported. So that is another method by means of which the proton concentration increases in the lumen. But here they have mentioned, along with the electron movement of electrons, protons are also transported. Now let's see how these protons reach the lumen. You know, the photosystems are located, as you can see in the picture, photosystems are located on the thylakoid membrane. And when electrons are being transferred, when electrons are moving through these photosystems, how protons are reaching the lumen. So that, once again, we'll see. This happens because protons are removed from the stroma for the following reasons. The primary electron acceptor. So from photosystem 2, it will be taken up by a primary electron acceptor. Where is the primary electron acceptor located? It's located on the outer side. And the one which is this primary electron acceptor, as I told, it is located on the outer side. So along with the transfer of electrons, it will remove a proton also from their outer part, that is stroma. So being located primary electron acceptor, since it is located on the outer side, when the transfer of electrons is taking place, the protons which is accompanying the transfer or movement of electrons will be taken up from the stroma. And to where it transfers this proton and electron, it will be passing to an electron carrier which is present on the inner side. And along with the electrons, protons are also being released into the inner side of the membrane. So primary electron acceptor, it will be located on the outer side. And when it is transferring electrons, Being present on the outer side, it will take protons from the stroma. Stroma is outside the thylakoid membrane. And this electron and proton will be transferred to where? We learned it will be transferring it to a proton carrier from primary electron acceptor, which is present on the outer side. The protons as well as electrons will be removed, and this will be transferred to a proton carrier, and this proton carrier will transfer it to an electron carrier on the inner side, and as a result the electron will reach the electron carrier present on the inner side, but the protons will be released into the lumen of thylakoid. And then we learned about NADP reductase enzyme. Okay, and NADP reductase enzyme, which is present on the stroma side, that is also on the outer side, outside the thylakoid. And for NADP to get reduced to NADPH2, along with electrons, protons are also needed. These protons necessary to reduce NADP will be taken from where? From the stroma, which causes a reduction in the concentration of protons in the stroma. First point, is it clear? You want me to repeat it again? First point? Nobody is responding.
It's clear now.
Primary electron acceptor. Primary electron acceptor present on the outer side, they'll be transferring electron. They'll accept electrons and transfers it to a proton carrier. So along with the electron, they'll be removing a proton also from the stroma. And when these electrons are transferred to another electron carrier present on the inner side, along with the electron, protons also will be transferred to the lumen, which causes an increase in the concentration of protons inside the thylakoid. Then I told you that this protons, accumulation of protons inside the outside will be less and inside will be more. So in the lumen it will be more, and in the stroma it keeps on decreasing. And this will result in the formation of or establishment of a proton gradient across the membrane. Because of the high concentration of protons inside the lumen, the pH will decrease and it becomes acidic. But whenever this proton gradient is broken, it will release energy. It is using that energy ATP is synthesized. And how it is broken down? If the proton gradient should break, then there should be movement of protons from the lumen to the stroma. How does that take place? With the help of ATP synthase enzyme. And ATP synthase enzyme has got two parts, CF0 and CF1. CF0 is located on the membrane, and it acts as a transmembrane channel situated on the membrane, located on the membrane, and through the channel, by facilitated diffusion, protons will move from the lumen into the stroma. So when this takes place, when electrons are transferred from the lumen to the stroma, the proton gradient will be broken, and as a result, energy will be released. This released energy brings about conformational change in CF1 and makes it synthesize or enables it to synthesize ATP molecules. And there chemiosmotic hypothesis gets completed, or this is how chemiosmosis takes place. And for chemiosmosis to happen, some requirements are needed: a proton pump, a membrane, a proton gradient, and ATPase enzyme. Hope you have understood. Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Energy is used to pump electrons across the membrane. That you know, energy is needed to pump electrons across the membrane. protons should move across the membrane, energy is needed to create a gradient. So if the proton gradient has to be established, then also energy is necessary, or a high concentration of protons within the thylakoid membrane. So energy is essential for the process to take place. It is used to pump protons across the membrane, for establishing a gradient, and for maintaining a high concentration of creating a proton gradient means making a difference in the concentration of protons inside and outside thylakoid. ATPase has a channel that allows diffusion of protons back across the membrane. This releases energy to activate the ATPase enzyme that catalyzes the formation of ATP. So when the protons get diffused across the membrane, so already by some ways protons have reached the lumen, but ATPase enzyme, enzymes are having a channel, a transmembrane channel, you call it a CF0, through that protons will diffuse out, and this releases energy, bringing about change in conformational change in CF1, making it synthesize ATP molecules. So with that, we have completed chemiosmotic hypothesis. And we have also completed the first phase of photosynthesis, that is light reaction. Now, as a result of light reaction, you know that two molecules are being formed, or two types of molecules are formed. What are those two molecules? Gayatri, what are the two products, main products of light reaction?
ATP and NADPH.
NADPH2. And these two are useful in carrying out the next step, that is dark reaction. And as I told you earlier, dark reaction got its name. The term is a misnomer. Actually, it is not because it is taking place in darkness, but it is a light independent reaction. Light is not necessary for it to take place, but at the same time, products of light reaction are required. NADPH2 and ATP are produced as a result of light reaction. These two products are necessary to drive dark reaction. Even though we call it as dark reaction, it's not taking place in darkness, but it is independent of light, but definitely it needs the molecules which are produced as a result of light reaction. And we even call it as biosynthetic phase. The first one we call it as light reaction, we call it as photochemical phase. And here we call it as biosynthetic phase. It is during this phase that the carbon dioxide is getting fixed to form sugar molecules. So here synthesis of molecules is taking place. Biosynthesis is taking place, or carbon dioxide gets fixed to form sugars. Products of light reaction: ATP, NADPH plus H plus, and also oxygen. ATP and NADPH are used to drive the processes of synthesis of food, sugar. So in dark reaction, using ATP and NADPH, carbon dioxide is fixed to form sugars. This phase is not directly dependent on light, but definitely it is dependent on the products of light reaction. Along with ATP and NADPH, carbon dioxide and water are also essential for the process to take place. Hope you don't have any doubts in this. It can be verified as follows. Immediately, so how to verify that? Dark reaction is light independent and light reaction is light dependent. So how can we verify? So scientists have already conducted studies on this and how they verified. Immediately after light becomes unavailable, the biosynthetic process will continue for some time and then it will stop. So when the scientists tried it out in the absence of light, light reaction will stop, but dark reaction continued for some more time. Immediately it did not stop when light was not available, but after some time it continued for some time and later stopped. That is because It is not, it doesn't require light, but at the same time, products of products of light reaction like ATP and NADPH are needed, and it will continue the process till it is used up. It doesn't require light, so it can carry on. The process can continue, but why it is stopping after some time? Because light reaction has already stopped. Okay, because light is not there. They tried out in the absence of light. So once the light reaction has stopped, no more ATP and NADPH are being synthesized. And whatever already has reached, that has been utilized. That is why dark reaction will continue for some time till that ATP and NADPH are used up. But once that is used up, then they need more molecules from light reaction. But when light reaction is not taking place, it will continue for some time, and once the products of light reaction are used up, it will stop. So from that, scientists understood that even though light reaction is dependent on light, the dark reaction is independent of light. Even in the absence of light, it can happen, but definitely it needs the products of light reaction. If light is made available, again the synthesis will start. Why? Because what is the reason? If light is made available, light reaction will start, and as a result of light reaction, ATP and NADPH will be produced, and this will be available for dark reaction to be carried out. That is why it is not because it is no light is there or it is because of darkness. It can take place even in the absence of light, provided ATP and NADPH are available. Carbon dioxide combines with water to form CH2ON. That is a symbolic representation of a carbohydrate. CH2ON. It can be C6H12O6. Okay, that is that N number we can change depending upon the carbohydrate. So, you know, in biosynthetic phase, carbon dioxide fixation is taking place. So, when carbon dioxide is getting fixed, sugars will be formed. And water is also needed because that is also an important raw material for photosynthesis. Have you understood? Some problem with the, yes. Okay. Melvin Calvin, he was a scientist who studied photosynthesis taking place in alga and discovered that the first carbon dioxide fixation product was 3-phosphoglyceric acid or PGA. We abbreviate it as PGA. It is a 3-carbon organic acid. Is it clear? It was Melvin Calvin who found out that upon fixing carbon dioxide, it is not, sugar is not immediately formed, but the first product formed will be PGA. 3-phosphoglyceric acid. It's an organic acid with 3 carbon atoms. And in which organism he carried out studies to come at this, to arrive at this conclusion? On alga. And he carried out different photosynthetic studies using alga with the help of, so here I have skipped one, using radioactive carbon, that is carbon 14. So using radioactive carbon, he carried out photosynthetic studies in alga, and he came to the conclusion that by fixing carbon dioxide, the first product that is formed is 3-phosphoglyceric acid, which is an organic acid with 3 carbon atoms. We learn more about that. And why he used carbon 14 is to trace the pathway of the molecule because it's a radioactive. So because of its radioactivity, we'll be able to trace out its path. So the name of the scientist is Melvin Calvin. And which organism he carried out studies? Alga. And based on the photosynthesis taking place in alga, he carried out different studies using radioactive carbon or carbon 14. And then he found out that the first molecule that is formed by fixing carbon dioxide is PGA or 3-phosphoglyceric acid, which is an organic acid containing 3 carbon atoms. So we'll continue in our next class. Hope you have understood. And I had asked you to send me message on your doubts. If you have some doubts, so far I did not get. So I believe you have understood. Is there any doubt? Children, do you have?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So next period, you have continuous classes today? How many periods today? So please do read and come. Next period, you can expect questions based on what I have covered today. Spare 10 minutes to revise. Thank you, children.